One of the most powerful ways to improve your English at the intermediate level is to immerse yourself fully in English content with English subtitles. Watching English movies, series, or even YouTube videos in English with English subtitles can make a huge difference in understanding and retaining new vocabulary, phrases, and pronunciation. By seeing words as they're spoken, you develop a clearer sense of how sentences flow in English, which is important for both listening and speaking skills. An excellent approach is to start with content that interests you, as you're more likely to stay engaged. For example, if you enjoy book summaries or stories, you can watch English videos related to books or summaries. This way, you'll be building vocabulary around a topic you're already comfortable with, helping you remember the words and phrases more naturally. Watching with subtitles also allows you to make connections between spoken and written English, which enhances your overall understanding of grammar and sentence structure. Keeping a vocabulary journal is another valuable habit. A vocabulary journal is a dedicated space for you to write down new words and phrases you encounter, especially those that you believe will be useful in everyday conversations or writing. But don't just stop at writing down the words. Make sure to write a sentence or two with each word to help reinforce its meaning and usage in context. Writing sentences also encourages you to think about the word's role in a sentence, such as whether it's a noun, verb, or adjective. This contextual learning is essential because it's not just about memorizing isolated words. It's about understanding how to use them effectively in conversation and writing. Over time, you'll notice that your vocabulary journal becomes a treasure trove of useful words that you can revisit whenever you need inspiration or reinforcement of your language skills. Another effective technique is to make it a habit to speak English out loud, even if you're just talking to yourself. This can feel awkward at first, but it's one of the most effective ways to improve both your fluency and confidence in speaking. For instance, try summarizing a story you read or a video you watched in English. It doesn't matter if you don't have anyone to speak with. Talking to yourself in English still reinforces your ability to form sentences and express ideas in the language. You'll start getting more comfortable with finding the right words, and you'll notice improvements in how naturally sentences come to mind. Additionally, speaking out loud helps you recognize areas where you might struggle, such as certain sounds or grammatical structures, which gives you a focus for further practice. It's a fantastic way to practice without the pressure of speaking to another person. Improving your English listening skills is essential, and one of the best methods for this is through active listening. Active listening means paying close attention to the sounds, words, and rhythm of spoken English and engaging with the content. A great way to practice is by listening to English podcasts, YouTube videos, or audiobooks on topics you enjoy. When you're actively listening, try to pick out phrases or vocabulary that are new to you, or notice how native speakers phrase certain ideas. Don't hesitate to pause, rewind, and replay sentences you find interesting or challenging. You can even mimic the speaker to match their pronunciation and intonation, which will help you sound more natural over time. This approach not only builds listening skills, but also deepens your familiarity with the language's natural flow, rhythm, and stress patterns. The shadowing technique is a fantastic strategy for boosting your pronunciation and overall language fluency. Shadowing involves listening to a native English speaker and then repeating what they say immediately after. This might be a line from a movie, a phrase from a podcast, or even a sentence from a YouTube video. By following along closely, you're forced to match the speaker's speed, intonation, and pronunciation, which can be challenging but extremely rewarding. Shadowing helps you develop an ear for the sounds of English, while also training you to speak with greater fluidity and confidence. Over time, you'll notice that this practice makes you sound more natural, and you'll become more comfortable with common expressions and conversational phrases. If possible, practice shadowing regularly. It's an active, engaging way to improve both your listening and speaking skills at the same time. The first tip is immersing yourself in English content with English subtitles. This approach is crucial for language learners at any level, and it's especially helpful as you reach the intermediate level. When you watch movies, shows, or YouTube videos in English with English subtitles, you're giving yourself double exposure. You're hearing the words and seeing them at the same time. This reinforces your understanding of pronunciation, vocabulary, and grammar. For example, if you're watching an episode of a popular series, you'll pick up everyday phrases and expressions that people use in real life. You might notice that characters say, "What's up?" instead of, "How are you?" giving you insight into conversational English. One key part of this practice is to choose content you genuinely enjoy, whether it's comedy, drama, or even science documentaries. When you're interested in what you're watching, you'll naturally focus more and learn faster. Try to start with content that has simpler language, then gradually move to more complex shows as you feel more confident. You can also replay certain parts of a video to hear the pronunciation or rhythm of specific phrases. Eventually, you'll find that some phrases or expressions stick with you, making it easier to incorporate them into your own speaking or writing. Another way to maximize learning from subtitles is to challenge yourself by turning off subtitles once you're comfortable with a video. You'll get to test your listening comprehension, and it's okay if you don't understand everything right away. What matters is that you're training your brain to catch more words and phrases without visual assistance. Plus, if you watch book summaries or videos on familiar topics, you're more likely to already understand the general meaning, making it a perfect way to build confidence without feeling overwhelmed. The second tip is to keep a vocabulary journal, which is a classic yet highly effective method for language learning. Your vocabulary journal is like a personal dictionary of all the new words and expressions you're encountering. Every time you come across a word you don't know or a phrase that sounds useful, jot it down. However, it's not just about writing the word. It's important to understand a word's meaning and how it's used in context. For instance, if you come across the word resilient, write down not only the definition, able to recover quickly, but also a sentence that makes sense to you, like, "The team was resilient after losing the game and worked harder to win. Next time." You could divide your journal into categories like common phrases, descriptive words, or business vocabulary to make it easier to find the words you need. Reviewing your journal regularly is also crucial. Go over your words weekly to refresh your memory. It's a good idea to try using these new words in your everyday life, either by writing sentences with them or by trying to work them into conversations. Over time, this habit will build a strong vocabulary base that you can draw from when speaking, writing, or even just understanding English media. The third tip is speaking English out loud, even if you're just talking to yourself. Many language learners feel nervous about speaking, especially if they don't have a partner to practice with. But you don't need another person to build confidence in speaking. Speaking out loud on your own allows you to experiment with new words and phrases without the fear of making mistakes in front of others. For example, after reading an article or watching a video, you can summarize it aloud to yourself. Start with simple sentences like, "The video was about how to stay motivated when learning a new skill." Then challenge yourself to explain it in more detail, describing the specific tips shared in the video. Another way to practice speaking alone is to narrate your day. This might sound unusual, but talking about what you're doing, like, "I'm preparing breakfast and today I'll make scrambled eggs," is excellent practice for everyday conversation. Speaking to yourself also helps you identify words or phrases you might need in daily life. If you find yourself unsure of how to describe something, you can make a note to look it up later. This way, you're constantly expanding your practical vocabulary. Over time, this practice builds fluency and confidence, making you more comfortable when speaking to others. Active listening is the fourth tip, and it's particularly useful for intermediate learners who want to improve their comprehension skills. When you listen to English podcasts, YouTube videos, or audiobooks, it's not just about hearing the words. It's about understanding the message, picking up the speaker's tone, and identifying expressions you might want to use yourself. Let's say you're listening to a podcast about travel tips. As you listen, pay attention to how the speakers talk about their experiences and recommendations. You might hear phrases like, "One of the most beautiful places I've ever been," or "I highly recommend visiting." By actively listening, you learn how to describe your own experiences in English. To take your listening practice further, try pausing the audio every few minutes to repeat what you just heard. This helps you retain the information better and builds your confidence in speaking. If you encounter new vocabulary, write it down in your vocabulary journal with an example sentence. Over time, you'll find that you understand native speakers more easily and can pick out the most important points without needing subtitles or transcripts. The fifth and final tip is using the shadowing technique, which is a fantastic way to improve pronunciation, rhythm, and fluency. Shadowing involves listening to a native English speaker and then immediately repeating what they say. It's a powerful technique because it forces you to match the speed, intonation, and natural flow of spoken English. For example, if you're watching an interview with a native speaker, try pausing after each sentence or phrase and repeating it exactly as they said it. This might feel challenging at first, but it trains your brain and mouth to produce the sounds of English accurately. By practicing shadowing, you'll also get a better feel for English intonation, the rise and fall of your voice that gives meaning to sentences. For example, in English, your tone often rises at the end of a question and falls at the end of a statement. These details make a big difference in how natural your speaking sounds. The more you shadow native speakers, the more natural your pronunciation and rhythm will become. Shadowing also helps build muscle memory for speaking English, making it easier to remember the correct sounds and expressions over time. To keep your practice interesting, try shadowing speakers who discuss topics you enjoy, like travel, cooking, or history. You could even find English audiobooks of stories you know well and shadow parts of the narration. This makes the practice feel more engaging and personal. Additionally, shadowing can be done in short bursts. Just 5 minutes a day can make a noticeable difference. The consistency is what counts, so even if you can only do it for a few minutes each day, you'll see steady progress in your speaking abilities. These strategies are not just theoretical. They're practical, step-by-step methods you can incorporate into your daily life to make English a natural part of your day. Combining all these techniques will give you a well-rounded approach to improving your listening, speaking, vocabulary, and comprehension skills. By staying consistent and dedicating time to each tip, you'll find that your comfort and fluency in English steadily grow. Remember, language learning is a journey, so celebrate each milestone and keep pushing forward.